Good evening, Anne Arundel County. Good evening, America. Welcome to the 25th episode of Promoting Don't Get Fooled Again with Class. I'm your host, Anthony Bynum. The name of our production company is the Glenn Burney Players. Yes, number 25. So we have a special show for you tonight. But before we start with the show, we have some announcements to make, and they're exciting announcements. Episode 8 of Don't Get Fooled Again is now available. So it's already on the cable access channel. That's AAC TV. I watched it tonight at 7 o'clock, and I really enjoyed seeing it on the big screen, so to speak. But also you can catch it on my YouTube channel. That's at Anthony Bynum 1948. So again, these are exciting times. Also, on the cable access, last night I saw the service 2 weeks ago at John Wesley Methodist United Church. It was the Women's Day service, and the guest reverend that day was Dr. Tracy Cole Wilson, and it was a beautiful service. That's playing on AAC TV about 9:30 Tuesday nights and Thursday nights. That's also available if you want on the my cable access channel. Again, that's at Anthony Bynum 1948. Also, right around the corner in post-production as we speak, it's a special episode coming of Don't Get Fooled Again. This is a spelling bee, and we held it in conjunction, we partnered rather, with the Anne Arundel House of Hope. And when that one is ready, we're going to get it out to you. I think that's going to be a special episode, and we're really looking forward to that. Now, as far as this episode is concerned, we want to give credit where credit's due. So as usual, we use Wikipedia, but we also use some information right from the website of www.nasalblock.com. And we also used material, borrowing material rather, from the Poem Hunter. So let's get started with today's show. Again, we said it was a 25th episode. So I can think of no better place to be than looking at my favorite sport. That's basketball. So we're going to look at the inventor of basketball, Dr. James Naismith. But we're going to look at him through four main factors because there's a lot of information on him. So let's start off with doing some screen sharing. Oops, that's not what we want. We want this right here. And we want this right here. Okay, let's start off with some of the fundamentals, as we say. Dr. Naismith was born 11/6/1861. He's from Almont, Canada, which is in modern-day Ontario. He died 11/28/1939 in Lawrence, Kansas. So he's the inventor of the game of basketball. And we're going to talk about how the game was invented in a moment. But first, I want to share how we want to take a look at Dr. Naismith. So we're going to compare basketball with the other major sports. We're going to talk about the economics of basketball. We're going to talk about the Olympics, thus the international growth of basketball, or the appeal, so to speak, and also John McLendon, how he plays into this. So as far as the invention of the game, so Dr. Naismith actually was a PE teacher, okay? And he was actually working for the International YMCA in Springfield, Massachusetts. And his boss at the time gave him an assignment. So in those cold New England winters, you had people trapped inside all day long, and it was not a good idea because people get rowdy and destructive. So his boss at the time, I may be able to find this very quickly on my phone. The names should only take a second. It should only take a second here to find this. I think the gentleman's name was Gillick, I believe. Well, we'll have to get back to that. We don't want to spend a lot of time looking on the phone right now, right? But he was given an assignment. He was given basically 2 weeks to come up with an indoor sport that was not too rough, that was good to keep people in shape and get people's attentions. Again, these winters in New England, right? I mean, even now, right? So no one's really interested in staying inside prolonged periods of time. They want to get outside. So he looked at the other sports that were around, right? He looked at hockey, he looked at lacrosse, he looked at football. And he knew he wanted there to be some differences. One, he didn't want the game to be too rough. He wanted to make it so that it was kind of fair to everybody. So therefore, he decided to have whatever the instrument, in this case, a hole where the ball would go, had needed to be up high. Initially, it was actually at 10 feet. And he wanted to cut down on some of the rough housing. So he wanted to eliminate running with the ball because that just led to tackling and all kinds of rough stuff. He was trying to stop that. So he put together 13 basic rules to the game. And he had his classes just go ahead and go for it. And he kind of watched, and from there he would be able to kind of innovate a little bit what worked, what didn't work. And basketball was born, and it took off. So I want to talk about some of these other elements here. Comparison with the other sports. So the four major sports when I grew up in the 70s were basketball, football, hockey, and of course, baseball. So let's start with baseball. So baseball is an American game, but much of it was borrowed, at least initially, from the English game of cricket, okay? You have hockey. Hockey is a Canadian game or north of the border. But the Canadians actually watched Native Americans playing what eventually became lacrosse. They just kind of put it on ice, if you know what I mean. And but that's hockey. Football. Well, again, a lot of innovation in football, but football, much of it is borrowed from rugby. So in basketball, you have something that's pretty unique. It's pretty unique. We had to move on to the economics of the game. So the beauty of basketball is all you really need is a ball and a pair of sneakers to play. Wow, right? And so you understand why it has such great appeal. These were not wealthy times back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s. These weren't wealthy times. People didn't have a lot of money, okay? A lot of the first grade basketball players were Jewish people who still lived in cities, in the East Coast, that is. You had the farmhands, right? My brother told me a couple weeks ago, I was in Chicago, and he told me that out there in the Midwest, you know, the Iowas and the Chicagos and the Indianas, you know, I guess Iowa's more the plains, but you have all this farmland, all this open states, all this farmland, and every front of every one of those farmers' houses, you see a basketball hoop. And what are young people doing in their off time? They're shooting. They're shooting. They're getting better, getting better, getting better. The Olympics. So the modern day Olympics actually only came back in 1894. And basketball, because of its growth, became what they call a demonstration sport in 1904. It wasn't actually until 1936 that it became something for everyone to actually compete. It was no longer just a demonstration sport. So those were the Berlin Olympics. So even Adolf Hitler couldn't dim the light that was to become this great, great sport. I had to bring in John McLendon here. I first heard about John McLendon, the legendary coach, from a documentary that Earl the Pearl Monroe's production company did. It's called Black Magic. And it was all about the history of the game. And McLendon, who was a great coach, had created the secret game, where it was a game held somewhere in North Carolina, probably the Durham area, where you had students from Yale's medical school play an all-black team, and they didn't want anybody to know about it. And it was early in the morning, and the gym, everything was closed, and he didn't tell anybody about it. But he was trying to bring integration and using basketball as a tool for that. He did a lot of other great things also. In fact, we're going to circle back to him because his career was so great. But I want to talk about him as it relates to Dr. Naismith. You see, in the 6th grade, McLendon somehow was at a junior high, and he saw his first gymnasium, and he saw basketball hoops. And from that, and he saw someone shooting baskets. From that day on, he said, I want to be part of this. I want to be a coach in this great thing called basketball. And so when it was time to go to college, and he was from Kansas, by the way, he wanted to go to college at the University of Massachusetts in Springfield, Mass, because that's where Dr. Naismith invented the game back in 1891. But his parents, they couldn't send him up to school up there. They didn't have the money for that. But his dad did a little research, and he found that Dr. Naismith was still around. And he was an athletic director at Kansas, because he worked there for many, many, many years. He brought basketball to Kansas, University of Kansas. And so he told his son to go to the school, apply to the school, and meet Dr. Naismith, and essentially tell him that, you want him to be your advisor. And so he did. He did. And he met Dr. Naismith, and he said, well, my father said that that you should be my advisor. And Dr. Naismith looked at him. He said, well, it looks like your father knows what he's talking about. And this was the beginning of a beautiful relationship. He was his advisor for his whole time at Kansas. Now, he didn't play on the basketball team. There were no, it was not integrated. There were no Black players on the team. But he taught him everything he knew. And that's what makes the story so fulfilling, so great. I think about, when I read that, I had to think about a young Booker T. Washington and General Armstrong at Hampton. That is the first thought that came to mind. Taught him everything he knew and helped him become a great, great man. So that was the kind of person that Dr. Naismith was. And this is a long time ago. You think about this. He invents this game, which it wasn't until the Olympics that he really saw how big an idea this was. The Olympics in 1936, near his death, he didn't really see the real consequences of what he created. And I was going to say one other thing on this subject. But what did he see in his lifetime? He saw it become a demonstration sport in the Olympics. He saw it grow through the YMCA. YMCA was a real big deal back in those days. Different states, university, schools. He saw the formation of sports associations that were all focused around scholarship and athletics. And he saw all that in his lifetime. And he saw innovations too. I mean, John McLendon created the fast break. He was the start of an incredible coaching tree. While Naismith, just as a side note, probably shouldn't spend this much time on this, but as great as he was, he's the only coach in the history of Kansas basketball with a losing record. He was 55-60. It wasn't a terrible losing record, but it was still a losing record. But he coached the great Pdgfawc Allen, who was a tremendous coach, won championships at Kansas, won at least one at Kansas. And who did Pdgfawc Allen coach? But Dean Smith. So it all starts with Naismith, right? You're associated with that man, you're associated with royalty. Anyway, again, this was episode 25. Just pardon me, but it's just an incredible story, So we're going to stop sharing, and we're going to move on to the next part of our show. Very good. Thanks for humoring me and staying with me on that one. Okay, and on the comment. So lately, I've been thinking a lot about infrastructures. I've been thinking about buildings, thinking about businesses, right? Because these are all important. We see them every single day. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Maisel brothers. If you traveled on, I think it's that's 8th Avenue. That's 8th Avenue. You see them, And if you ever needed to get some stone or some masonry, bricks, that's probably where you went. So I pulled this right from their website, and I'm just gonna read it to you. It's gonna tell the story of the Maisel brothers. Harry and Russell Maisel founded Maisel Brothers in 1943, buying what had been the Wagner family block manufacturing plant in Glen Burnie, Maryland. They based their business on the principles of courtesy, quality, and service, as well as a solid knowledge of the construction and block business. When they say block, they're talking about cinder blocks. Before entering business, Harry had served as an engineer and executive for several major construction engineering firms. Seeing from his own experience the advantages of concrete block as a building material and the future of the home do-it-yourself market, he and brother Russell bought 5 acres of land in Glen Burnie and set up shop. Their goal was to set up a one-stop masonry shopping place for private and commercial home builders. In 1969, Harry's sons Gerald, Lawrence, and Gary took over the daily workings of the plant. They soon saw the need to modernize and install computers to oversee the block manufacturing plant and accounting department. In 1975, a fully equipped masonry supply store was added to the premises. So that's a great story, and it's right here in Anne Arundel County. It's a great story. So we're going to close now with something from the poem Hunter. Again, buildings have been on my mind recently. So this poem is called Building Something Awesome. It was written by Kian Pilar. I'm going to read it to you. I feel inspired to build something awesome. Old emperors built Taj Mahals and temples. Later, we saw great factories and products. Now we use digital stuff like Google. Can I really build something in my lifetime? Should I dream of building a Google or a concept so rich like the red pill? What about a movie or a music album, maybe? I feel it is a great life that is the biggest product. Live a happy life, creative and free. That life itself is legacy, as each day is fresh. Possibilities run endlessly with great lives. I feel detail and complexity in the nature is, let me read that again. I feel detail and complexity is nature in greatness. One who deals with complex ideas is simple. One who complicates a simple idea, well, let's not talk about that soul today. I feel inspired to build something awesome today. You may need to work with many people then. Can I have the power to lead many humans? Or is it just myself I need to lead to glory? Maybe a great life itself is a great idea. Poetry, paintings, code, and lots more can arise out of a life capable of great opportunities. Probably I have already started building something. And again, that's called Building Something Awesome by Kiran Pilar. So the big news, episode 8 is available now. Please check it out. I think you're going to really enjoy this one. Each time, we try to be a little more innovative, a little smoother. It's a process, but we think we're getting there. We really, really do. So for everyone here at the Glen Burnie Players, my name again is Anthony Bynum. Until next time, bye-bye.